5 teenagers under the age of 18 have been sentenced to 3 months in prison by a children's court for setting up tents during last year's Gezi protests in the Aegean town of İzmir. The court converted 4 of the teenagers' prison sentences to a fine of 2,000 Turkish liras, putting them under judicial control for 3 years. However, it refused to do so for another teenager, who unlike the others, will have to serve the 3 months and 10-day sentence. The 5 teenagers, between 15 and 18, were among the crowd who had installed tents at the centric Gündoğdu Square in early June 2013, to show support to protesters in Istanbul braving police violence as they demonstrated against the redevelopment of Gezi Park. The court acquitted them from charges of resisting police officers but found them guilty of participating in illegal demonstrations and resisting dispersal despite warnings and the use of force by public order officials. The lawyer representing the teenagers, Dinsar Alm, slammed the ruling, arguing the demonstrations in İzmir were peaceful and in line with the provisions for freedom of assembly in the European Convention of Human Rights. But the court ruled that because the teenagers did not leave the protest despite police intervention constituted as an offense, describing them as children dragged into crime. One of the convicted teenagers is 17-year-old Mustafa Ali Tanbul, whose skull was damaged due to the impact of a tear gas canister, but recovered after several surgeries. Tanbul was deeply affected by the injuries, becoming epileptic and still has difficulty speaking. His father slammed the decision as an attempt of intimidation. On the other hand, my son has been injured by the state's fault, but no trial has been opened for that yet, Mehmet Tanbul said. The family had filed a complaint demanding an investigation into the police attack that caused permanent injuries to Tanbul. The teenager was among the 4 whose prison sentence was changed into a fine and postponed for 3 years on the condition of not committing the same offense. Turkish courts have given out contradictory rulings regarding similar cases. Many courts acquitted protesters who had been charged of participating in illegal demonstrations on the grounds that they had used their right to free expression and assembly. But other cases saw convictions and appeals, despite lawyers claiming the lack of evidence about the use of violence by protesters. The most memorable case pertains to 21-year-old Deniz Karakoglu, who became known as the girl with the red foulard as prosecutors linked the color of her scarf with being affiliated to leftist groups. Karakoglu, who remained in custody pending trial for 4 months, and 4 of her friends are facing between 24 and 98 years in prison for being members of a terrorist organization, opposing the assembly law and resisting law enforcement officers. Karakoglu eventually joined the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, after meeting with militants in a high-security prison cell, her family announced, slamming the Turkish state for such oppression.